listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Nevelle.
Hey everybody, this is Dirk, and I'm super excited. With me is a friend that I've had for many years who was a teacher of mine in high school, and then, we became very close. Tim Reilly, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Fun to see you.
Thank you, man. So yeah, like I said, Tim, I went to Eastside Catholic in Bellevue, and Tim was a coach of mine. He was my religion teacher, and those are important years, and I was going through a lot. My parents were divorcing, and Tim was just kind of a friend and a father figure. And he's always meant a lot to me. And I've always admired Tim in terms of his career and just kind of doing what he was called to do. And the cool thing about Tim and some of my other guests is they do different things. They have dual incomes, dual jobs, life changes, and he's done a lot of cool things later in life that we're going to talk a little bit about. But maybe, Tim, I can just throw it back at you, and you can tell me a little bit about what it is you do, what you've done, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Which direction you want to go now and build backwards, or start at the beginning?
Let's do this, because people are tuning in. They're going to find you through a search, and they're going to go off of teaching. And I also have entrepreneur in there because you have a side business. So let's talk a little bit about the teaching life that you have, and talk about how you got into it, where you taught, and then we'll get into the weeds on kind of the life behind a teacher.
Right. All right. I graduated from college with a degree in psychology and a minor in theology because of an experience I had my junior year in high school at a retreat at your school where I was with you. We call it Destiny. It was Search when I was in high school. I remember the climactic evening of that thing when you probably recall such a big emotional night of that thing, and we get letters from people and stuff like that. I was just awash in this euphoric certainty that I could not just go to work somewhere. I have to do something that's of service. I have to do something that's useful to young people who are lost, troubled, and haven't figured it out yet. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know that's what I need to do. And it made me nervous as I was in college. I thought, I don't even know how to monetize this, right? I don't want to go to 8 more years of school or whatever and so on. But when I finished that, I was still, as I remember you were, we spoke a lot about it, still really nervous about finding my thing, what that's going to be. And so I thought, that's definitely adolescence. I don't know. I'm going to go do a 1-year teaching credentialing program at Lewis and Clark, and I'm going to start teaching high school. Then I'll always have my summers if that doesn't work out, and I can do ongoing education and it kind of channel back to psychology if I want to do that. But then the other extra fun thing is I was always an athlete. I can coach, and so I can be a teacher and coach, and let's see how that rolls. So I got teaching credentials, and I pursued teaching jobs by going to the track coaches at different schools, Jim Walters, as you know, just so someone there would kind of put my name at the front of the list for interviews, and I got hired at Eastside. I felt a little bit like an imposter, like I'm not sure I'm really a teacher. I'm positively not a religion teacher. I'm no religious, fanatic or anything, right? I was just kind of I would say I was kind of a spiritual guy, but I don't think you want me as a role model. And they're like, no, we do. You're just right. Kids will be able to relate to you. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I found out that I had ways to teach kids that really connected with them. It was not pious. It was not judgmental. I never promoted Catholicity or confirmation for kids or any of that stuff. I also taught English, which was easier for me. I felt a little more authentic in that. But I was able to create classroom environments in which I could really ask penetrating questions of kids that made everything we talked about real personal and meaningful for them, and to build a retreat-like atmosphere in my classrooms where kids could literally just unload. And it periodically got teary and sincere, and kids were like, "This is the greatest class," blah, 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 blah. So I said, well, okay, so that works for me. That this makes it meaningful for me. And so I kept doing that for quite a long time. And then I also developed this pole vault camp business. I was a passionate but uncoached and unsupported pole vaulter as a child. I don't know what happened to me, but it was always a love of mine. So I was coaching pole vaulters at Eastside too. And then I, in pursuit of that, I found mentors who really, really knew how to do it. And suddenly the pole vaulters at Eastside became the best in the whole area, the best in the state. And people wanted to know what I was doing. So I was like, woof, okay, well, I'll run a camp, but I don't know if anybody will come. And boy, did they come. So for 30 years, it was just like springs and summers. It was like a go-to place for pole vault help, and coaches and athletes from all over Oregon and Washington and stuff would do that. I only say that because my current chapter has returns to that. So that the teaching thing, I didn't fall into it because I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I had a sort of deeper, more rooty instinct that I wanted to serve, and in the humanities and education, the kinds of materials that we're reading, the content of that, and the daily classroom experience with kids.
Yep.
I found it really in a weird way. I don't even know if it would happen today. The way I connected with you guys at Eastside, you were my first freshman basketball team guys. And when I was a young teacher there, families would literally call me and say, "Hey, we're leaving town. Would you come and sit with our kids for the weekend, stay at the house?" And, like, well, okay. That's pretty weird, right? In this day and age, I don't think that kind of stuff would happen. But I was so integrated with families and kids back then. And once I moved to Seattle Prep and I had my own little family, I did a lot less of that.
Right.
And the world changed. I don't think that kind of fraternity was customary. So that's how I got into it.
Real quick, I don't mean to jump in. It's no big deal, but do you see, it's funny, your video, you keep going back and forth. Do you see that?
Well, I think my iPad keeps trying to focus on me. It's doing its job. I'll try to sit still, but I get so excited seeing you, Dirk. I don't know.
It's okay. I just thought I'd never seen that. I feel like you're leaving me.
Yeah, right? My videos.
Maybe it's symbolic. Maybe you're leaving and coming back. By the way,
I wonder if there's something I could do to stop that. I see it's trying to zoom in and out on me. That's no good, is it?
I don't know. I've never seen it before. I mean, at the end of the day, this will be an audio and video. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a feature there where maybe if you
stay. There is, I don't know. This iPad's smarter than I am. I see it's just trying hard to stay focused on me.
It's cool.
I can switch it to my phone and I won't do that.
Well, I switched to my laptop.
You're fine.
Well, if we're switching, we're starting over. So I don't know if you want to do that.
No, we're fine. I mean, this is natural. I think the closer you are to the screen, the less it does that. Yep. Maybe that might help. Plus, you're so handsome. I think it's important.
Yeah, right.
That the world sees the truth.
Okay.
By the way, I got to say, you did take care of me on some weekends, right? When my mom was out of town.
Yeah.
And I think you were more strict than my mom.
Okay.
I think I remember one night I had Kim Zetter over and Jamie McDonald, and you're like, "What time are they going home?" And I just remember, I don't know if my mom would be out, but you were great. You were a good friend of mine. So sorry to interrupt you, but keep going as far as, because I think this is interesting. Like when I'm listening to you, you had a lot of clarity at a younger age that I think sometimes it takes years to have. And so, the meaning and the wanting to serve. I guess my question is, before you went to LC, like, who was in your life that was giving you those voices? Was this something that you just had, or was it a family thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I came from a family of a whole lot of Jesuit priests, and many of them were teachers. And I spent a lot of time with them. And it never occurred to me that I wanted to do what they're doing. But there's a whole justice orientation, a whole kingdom building orientation, how to make a better world and all that kind of a thing. And to find solidarity with folks who are kicked to the margins of society. And so in a high school, to me, that means the kid in my class who's mopey, who I find out whose folks are divorcing, or who I find out, has any number of other things going on, or is bullied or whatever. Like, I found myself just zooming in on those little spots, and I just feel like it's like fetch for me though. It's like, oh my gosh, there's another kid who's doubting himself. I got this. My dad was a teacher, but I never knew him. He passed away when I was 2. So people say, oh my gosh, is that why you became a teacher? I'm like, no. Now, maybe there's something in DNA, but I mean, I was so unprocessed about that loss. I never even thought about him. So I don't know if there was something. I could look back at high school and think of very few teachers I really loved. And in college, yes, a lot of them, but it wasn't really clear to me that teaching would be a thing. In fact, I was I was an accomplished student, but really a goofball clown, and I was in it for sport and fun and social life. So when old classmates of mine heard I was teaching, they would always be like, what? Are you crazy? What do you do with guys like you? I say, I connect.
Maybe that's why we connected.
Work with them. I understand them. School can be a drag. We got to make it relevant, so.
Yeah, no, I just said maybe that's why you and I connected. I don't know if I was a goofball, but I do remember, I just thought of this. This is really interesting. So in the last few years ago, I went to University of Santa Monica. It's a spiritual psychology school. And I've had a coach for about 10 years, and I've done a lot of digging in, inner work stuff. And one of the things I've gotten really into is meditation. So I'll meditate every day. I usually do Joe Dispenza meditations, guided meditations. But I remember freshman year, I'm pretty sure there was a teacher that kicked me out of class. We were doing a meditation, and I remember he was telling me to reach for the unicorn. And I was being a goofball, I'm sure, at 9th grade. But do you remember kicking me out?
Was that me?
Oh, yeah. But it's funny.
Yeah. We're trying to have this kind of prayerful meditation, and here you are giggling on that. And at the end you said, but Mr. Reilly, it was when you talked about the horse was, try to eat sugar cubes out of her hand or something like that. And I thought, yeah, okay. Maybe it was a bad meditation, but...
It wasn't bad. I think it was Laura Coyle was next to me, and she started laughing. And so let's blame it on LC. Okay, so I didn't mean to cut you off, but... So
let me tell you about that kind of unfolding career thing. I know this is what...
Yeah.
If there was, looking at your poster makes me nervous. I don't think I was ever a genius teacher. I think of people who are like just quintessential teachers. They couldn't go home without reading more about their content the next day and all that. And I was not like that, but I was a genius at connecting with adolescents. And so as I approached, I moved once. I moved 15 years after 15 with you guys at Eastside. I did 15 at Seattle Prep, but I could feel like, oh God, I can't keep doing this. I'm burning out. There's so much, return home and grade more papers and faculty meetings. And I just thought, okay, I don't want to be one of those 65, 70-year-old teachers that everybody's like, oh, no, not Mr. Reilly, So I started feeling a stirring again, like I know I still want to connect, but I don't have the energy to be good at this anymore. I want to do something different. So I started imagining online teaching. I want to get certified in that. I thought, well, now I could do that for a while longer, and I could do it from my cabin, from my buddy's ski lodge, or maybe that's a way to kind of lighten the load and keep doing this. Then I connected with a Jesuit Virtual Learning Academy, and they had specialty courses, and I designed 2 for them, and they were blown away by the depth of questioning that I could come up with to engage students. They said, "Oh my gosh, kids are going to thrill to this. You got to do this." And then Seattle U commissioned me to design a course for them, and then we designed a course to put Seattle prep students with kids from Cristo Rey, a poor student school in LA, and have them in the same classroom. Then I started teaching online in the summers for Seattle U, another humanities class that I designed for climate change. So that kind of stuff, I thought, okay, this is my next thing. But then a dad asked me if I wanted to coach pole vaulters year round in a warehouse downtown, and I was like, pole vaulting? That's like asking your Labrador, "Hey, I wonder if you're still interested in fetching after all these years." And I just thought, oh man, wait a minute. I want to do that. I'll still teach online, but yes to that. I'm in. So when I started doing that, and it started blowing up with popularity, that was a surprise to me that I thought, this is what I love since I was a child. And one of my favorite readings in my master's program later in life, which I didn't even mention, discerning, again, what do I want to do with my remaining years, my remaining life energy? How do I use this sweet, short opportunity to live and serve? A Parker Palmer book called Let Your Life Speak included an exercise to revisit what gave you thrills as a child, like fetch does to a Labrador. And I thought, pole vaulting, that's what did it. It says if it was art, if it was music, whatever it is, pay attention to that, because there's something about that. It's a cue that you need to not forget. And so it would be difficult to overstate how successful this latest enterprise has been in the last 9 years, how this business has grown, how my competence at coaching pole vaulting has grown 10 times more than it had ever been as a camp coach and stuff like that. The athletes that I have are killing it. We go to national meets, first, second, third, and sixth. 3 people have surpassed the previous All-American, U.S. National record in my gym. And it's just unbelievable. I even have a world champion now. And so it's funny, but to find, and it's a privilege I recognize, if I wasn't privileged and well enough situated that I could play like that and explore like that, have a wife who does the business management for me, and have a buddy who says, you can use my gym. It takes a village to help an old dude find his lane, but good networking and all that kind of a thing, and stoking that little sacred fire of what I really love to do, has put me in this situation now that's very interesting. And so I'm a little sad to say I stopped doing the online teaching. It took so much time to check emails and assignments every day and to refresh the course every year. I was like, pole vaulting I don't have any prep time. I just flip on the lights and play like a baby. I'm just having so much fun in that environment, and the kids love it. I'm still connected with guys like you, and it's a surprising consolation to my silver years. Right?
I love that. You mentioned something about, I don't know if you misinterpreted Genius Zone as in you got to be the best at what you do. What you're describing is Gay Hendricks is an author that talks a lot about the zone of genius. He wrote a book called The Big Leap, but he talks a lot about going back to when you were a child and what were the obvious things that lit you up, and you're describing exactly what the zone of genius is. It's not like, you're the best teacher in the world or you have to be the best pole vaulting coach in the world, but you are going back to the core of who you are, and we all are born into this world, different from others, and there's things that I'm really good at and things I'm not good at. But I think what you're touching on is the fact that you've become pretty crystal clear and identified what it is that lights you up, and you've created a life around that. And the issue in this podcast, as far as like the advice that I'm trying to help young adults with, is there's two things. You have to take action. You know, you became a teacher. It led to this, led to that, and ultimately became, you know, what you're doing now. So I do understand that sometimes you got to just get out there and play ball. But what I'm trying to do is find ways to expedite the awareness.
Right.
And I think a lot of young adults, I should say personally, they don't think in those ways. They have different voices in their head about getting a job, getting an apartment, getting married, getting a car. Any advice that you would give, you know, to help somebody maybe become more in tune, you know, maybe drop out of their head and more into their heart and feel like, what is it that I'm supposed to do? You know, what do I want to do where I wake up on a Monday and I'm happy? Like, any advice you might want to give to somebody that's struggling?
Wow. Everybody struggles for different reasons, and not knowing them, you know, a leader's first job is to listen. My own son heard a lot of this stuff when he was growing up, my oldest. He went off to Fordham to pursue his dream to be in musical theater, you know. It was his happiest time in high school, and he got some great roles. And he got there, and he felt like, what was I kidding? These kids have been tap dancing and singing, you know, and Shirley Temple School since they were in diapers, you know. I can't compete with this, and they're all psychos. Now I'm a failure. What am I going to do? I'm like, look, it's a privilege. I don't even know anybody, to be truthful to you, who's having so much fun with their daily work as I am right now, and is in their lane and so sweetly. It doesn't have to be only the most amusing, life-rewarding things every day you go to work. I mean, there's a lot even about teaching. It's a grind. It's a pain. It's tiresome. You can continue to pursue those things, though, what you love so much. In your home hours, you can be in a band. You can have a little art studio, you know. You can have your little microphone and screen set up and interview people, even when you're not at work, you know, selling mortgages to people, right? I mean, we can't all those dots all synchronized perfectly. The killer is if we let all those other things die out. Those embers need fanning and stoking, and we need to continue to indulge in those things. So you got to find what you love, even if there are things about your work that are not what you love. Now, I would say if you find things about your work which suck the life out of you, you know, you're not as happy as me at work, that's one thing. But if it's just really like those people, I cannot live with their ethics in that place, or with harassment in that environment, or whatever, like that needs serious consideration, because we have to listen to our spirit, and our spirit will not sit quietly if things are not okay. We're going to be nauseated, agitated all the time if we're not paying attention to what we need to do. And so those are good things. You're feeling unhappy about your job? Good. Okay. So listen, don't quit necessarily. You got to start looking for other things and pay more attention. You need to get your journal out. You need some reflection time. You got to pay attention to that. Find a vocational mentor, something, so that you can exercise those muscles of discernment, which are really, they require time and quiet and probably some other people that you value to bounce some ideas off of. Yeah. Not just grumpiness and angst about the situation you're in. There's an invitation in that. There's a calling, a stirring, which has to be listened to. And I think that people who don't continue to listen to that sometimes become stale, lawyers or teachers or whatever. It's like, I wish they'd do a little more inner work. I wish they'd, realize that they're hard to be around or whatever. I think that I didn't do enough of that for 30 years of teaching until about my last 5. I don't think I was attentive enough to the kind of colleague I was, and so on. That when I went back to this late life master's in 14, I really wished I could have done that 10 years, 15 years earlier. I might not have even stayed in teaching as long, but I would have been a better teacher and a better colleague. So now, I've redeemed it a little bit. I'm wiser, more self-aware now than I was.
Yeah, I like the word you use, attentive. I think it's really sometimes obvious. It's easier than sometimes it's just paying attention to the obvious. And so, again, I don't have all the answers because I know it took me many years to figure some things out. But I think if anything, what I'm hearing you say is, in recent years, you become more attentive to what fires you up. And I would say to a young adult, maybe struggling, that, pay attention to that voice. And by the way, you bring up a great point. There's, my father's voice, I can hear it, like, just get a job. You don't need to be happy. You're supposed to work and provide, and then you can spend 2 weeks or a month, doing the fun stuff. There's people out there, I don't think, that care about what it is they do. They just want to fish 2 weeks a year and ski 2 weeks a year or whatever. And, that's fine. But my audience, my niche are those people that want to incorporate passion into what they do.
Yeah.
I'm fine with both sides of the fence, but what I'm really trying to address is that group that is wanting to have more meaning and impact in what they do. Getting back to being a teacher, it's obvious people think they know what being a teacher is. You show up, you teach, you create a curriculum, you grade. Tell us about some of the things that maybe over the years that surprised you that you didn't see coming, like maybe the politics of being a teacher. I mean, I don't know if you were ever impacted, like, I know the teaching profession didn't pay a ton of money, but I really started realizing, in my 30s, that was a big deal for me. Or maybe it was just taking crap from punks, and you can't, I don't know what it is, but, if someone's thinking about being a teacher, is there anything you could say to maybe, not persuade them not to pursue this career, but things that maybe aren't obvious?
Things that surprised me in teaching, you and I were at Eastside when it was a very young school, and it was really started by a lot of very enthusiastic parents who perhaps rightly felt that they had some ownership over the place. And as that school was trying to establish its identity, there were a lot of pulls, like, we got to move this school to prominence by way of our athletic program. And if you don't like it, get out of the way. And we're going to put somebody here who will listen to the way we want to do it. And suddenly the teachers were like, wait a minute, we're letting some students in here that would not normally get into here, and they're becoming problems in our classroom. We don't have the resource to care for that, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly there was this big tension of what we felt like was our educational integrity at Eastside. And the year before I left Eastside, 15 teachers left. And the year I left, 17 teachers left. And so it was just like teachers meeting in each other's classroom, like, oh, how can we live with this? This is so crazy. So there was just a huge kind of a corporate angst. It wasn't the classroom environment. It was just what kind of a ship are we on here? This is just not right. So that kind of stuff took me by surprise. And I know that Eastside was perhaps better off without us, and they found a way to make it work, and they've had some really great years again. They're thriving. And I hear some other grumblings like, oh, we're kind of in another one. Yeah, well, you go through those growing pains. When I went to Seattle Prep, a school that had been around for a really long time, I thought, like, well, it feels good to be at a place that knows who they are and doesn't have to bend over every time a parent has a complaint, and, and all that kind of thing. So that felt good. There's still some of that,
Yeah.
Everybody has had bosses that they didn't get along with, right? Colleagues that were difficult. I'm sure I was one for people. So that kind of stuff is not what you think about when you want to become a teacher.
Real quick, I want to ask you this, just because it seems like, this is just my opinion, but especially with universities, that so much, I don't know, the line between parenting and teaching, and I don't want to get too political on this podcast, but do you feel like you were ever in a situation to where you couldn't teach and articulate what you wanted? You had to, say words that were from somebody else?
Not that. I know what you're getting at. It's a great question. When I was first teaching, they assigned me to a couple of religion classes at Eastside. I had a really, really conservative dad complaining to the principal that he's not teaching Catholic catechism, and I'm like, dang right I'm not. And luckily, the principal was like, dude, we got this, and he kind of defended me. And, later I thought, well, there's a great push for critical thinking, and let's think critically about this and that and the other thing. But let's not go so far as to think critically about the school itself. We're not going to question our school, and we're not going to question Catholic stuff. We can question other things. In fact, we don't really want to question capitalism, right? There are some certain sacred cows that are meaningful for everybody there, which are out of bounds. Otherwise, we can think critically about a science experiment or about, so there's always been a little bit of that. And so it's always been in Catholic schools where I've been, there's always a few kind of things you steer away from so as to not to make trouble. If I was ever, making efforts to be sure that kids felt included, like we had a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance club at our school, which meant a lot to me. I was so grateful that it was there, and the students that were there. I always went to all the meetings and stuff like that. Many other schools were shut down, not allowed to do that, because that's not Catholic. It's like, really? Inclusivity is not? What do you think? We're promoting homosexuality? Yeah. So it's really, there's always been that kind of tension.
Totally.
Luckily, again, the Jesuits stood firm and said, look, we're inclusive, and there is nothing sinister about this at all. Come on in and listen. And so we stayed strong too, and I was very proud of that. Today, I'm glad not to be in it. It's just really, it's really awful, to banish certain topics, Yeah, it's a sad time for me to watch that.
So, I think what we're talking about is just maybe the politics, in any business, school, whatever. There's always politics. There's always that dance. Anything else that might surprise, somebody that's thinking about being a teacher, like, they know the ins and outs of what it's about, but anything else that surprised you over the years?
Pleasantly, it surprised me. I did my student teaching in public schools in Portland, and because I had a psychology background, they plugged me into an alternative school, which was just kids who had been previously booted out of schools, and that was kind of like that was some hard knocks training ground. When I went to Eastside, I thought, this is so easy. The kids are all so motivated and polite and everything like that. I talked to folks in public schools that speak of, like, kids cursing them out and threatening them and all that. I'm like, what? I sort of lived in a little insulated bubble working in private college prep schools. So I know that depending on where you live and work, it can be very different. It can be very hard. A friend of mine teaches near my lake cabin at a school that's got a lot of poverty, and a chunk of kids are there going home to trailers with no electricity at night and stuff like that. I said, oh, what's it like there? He says, what's it like? Disneyland. I was in LA where people give me the finger coming and going in class every day. So he said, this is great. And I thought, oh boy. So there are various kinds of environment, and God bless the folks who can manage those environments well. I think my burnout factor would have been a lot quicker if I didn't feel appreciated. I got to walk into rooms where people are like, Mr. Reilly, hi, and
Yeah.
So it was pretty nice and maybe unrealistic.
Yeah. I think
So
the
that
mean
would have been a big shock to me.
the mean streets of Bellevue, it was rough. Right across
Yeah,
from
right.
Bellevue Square. People think it
Yeah.
was easy, but those lattes sometimes were so hot that once I spilled one, I mean, it wasn't it wasn't it was a little sheltered. So let me ask you, so one of the things I do with my guest is there's different criteria that things that I think are important components to think about what you want in a job. For example, freedom, compensation, upward mobility. What are some of the 2 or 3 or maybe 2 of the things that are really important for you to have in a job, and maybe touch on it as how it relates to being a teacher? It's like, for example, for me, freedom is really big. I want to be able to leave my job, go pick up my kids, go coach them, whatever. What are some of the things that are prevalent in teaching that are big for you?
I'm nervous about suggesting that this is common among teachers. So let's just totally be a Reillyism. For me, and especially now, I'm just acutely aware that I need to feel contributive. One of the most haunting things I can imagine is just stopping everything and resting or playing golf or whatever. It's like, what good am I to anybody if I still have some gifts and people still need it and I can offer those? So to feel like who I am and what gifts I have are essential and valued. So to be at a place that values me.
Yeah.
The administrators value me, they respect me, the kids value and respect what I have. That would be a really big thing. I think to be in a place where people just said, go do that. No, enough of that. We don't want to hear about that. Let's just keep you in this lane. I would feel like, wait, you're not making use of me. That you're not. Yeah. So I think that provides a lot of life energy to know that you're contributing well and that people value you in your workspace.
Real quick, I want to jump in on that because I've never heard it articulated like that, but that's my big struggle as a lender is the stickiness of Dirk. What I am, I don't feel as fully utilized in my line of work. Like there's a lot of people you can go get a loan with, and so I don't really get to use my whatever I am, my skills, my maybe a small percentage of my clients value the uniqueness of Dirk, but a lot of times it's not about Dirk. It's about my rate and my fees, and I struggle with that as well. So that's a great one. Is there another one you can think of?
Yeah. I'm thinking of you as a 18 and a 22-year-old as we visited a lot, how concerned you were about that. I'm so glad you're doing this right now. I got to tell you, this you're really, you're figuring it out. That's cool. I had another one in mind that, but just thinking back about you again, I forgot what I was going to say about it. Give me a second on that. But here's the other thing. I need to be constantly challenged and held accountable for progress. So there's an annual, it's a bit of a pain in the rear, but annual kind of like teacher evaluations and stuff like that. And some of us demeaning like, oh, we observed this and we think you need to do that. Enlightened administrators would say, you're good. Yeah, you're doing so many great things, but chances are, where you still need to improve. What would you say? And then it's very easy to say, well, yeah, my planning is this, or I'm lazy about that. And I'll say, yeah, so what do you want to do about that? What should we do? Well, and to kind of draw it out of me, like, can I see it on paper? Will you commit to me? Can we see this next year? Can we visit again and see if you've done that? That kind of a illuminated leading to prompt me to continuously improve myself was a really great criteria for a healthy working environment for me.
Would you call that accountability?
I would.
Okay.
But it was not a kind of a top-down parent-child transaction at all. It was like colleague to colleague kind of a thing. Now, I'm holding you accountable because I'm, the academic vice principal or whatever, but I'm asking you to tell me, what is it? And maybe I'll share some things. Maybe I'll say, I see that as a strength. I see you might want to look at this, but don't let me lay it on you. I just want to bring it out of you.
Right.
And so that might be unrealistic for a lot of people in work environments. I think a lot of people have a very hierarchical structure in their work environment. But I think that's a really illuminated way to lead and a dignifying way for people in any job to continue to improve and discern other ways. I even remember Jim Dean asked me once, why do we keep waiting for you to step up and say, I want to lead at each side? I'm like, he says, I just wonder. And so I was like, all right. Yeah, you're right. I do need to do something more. I'm just getting comfy in my classrooms and I'm not really contributing like that. So I became one of the academic vice principal guys for a few years, and I appreciated that kind of prompting.
Okay. I like it. Anything else you can think of? Like, imagine someone coming out of Lewis and Clark and they're all excited to teach. Is there anything else not to push them away from being a teacher, but is there anything else that maybe they have no clue that they're going to experience?
Well, to my amazement, I met a guy who was a year behind me at high school, and I heard that he had gone into special education or something. And when I saw him a couple of years later, I said, so where are you working? And he said, oh, I'm not. I'm working at Big Five Sporting Goods. I go, oh, sheesh, what? He said, I started student teaching, and I found out how much teachers make. Come on, dude. You didn't mean to say that you were that naively engaging in a career that you had never spent some time in classrooms, I would just say, you spend some time in classrooms, I think they kind of mandate that, but I was really almost on the street with my certificate before I ever did any student teaching. That's pretty late for a person to find like, oof, I don't like this.
So are you talking about understanding what it's like to teach, or not understanding what the compensation
understanding
is?
What it was like to be in that environment, understanding what they make.
Yeah.
Talking to people in that career. There's a cool new thing that my son has been involved with called this informational interview. So somebody in a place that they wish that like, I had this idea, I'd like to do what you're doing, Dirk. Can we meet for coffee? And would you indulge me in a half hour of time if I just ask you about what is this whole thing, this interviewing, podcasting, and then you'd say, well, this is what I'm doing. I think that's a really cool thing that is very common now, that kids can, or, graduated collegians can ask for some time with people and really listen to what it's like for them. What do you love about what you're doing? What do you hate about it? That's a really cool thing that was not promoted when I was young at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do virtually, right?
Right.
Eventually, you'll be able to search based on title, industry, and then maybe 25 podcasts pop up, and I do think a lot of people don't have access to people too, I think, I mean, same with just kind of poverty, and I mean, there's a lot of things, but having access to information is crucial, I think, in terms of success. But I also want to shift the way people think about their job and get out of the old school of, get a job, even if you hate it, because that's a lonely life, and in my opinion. So if you were to start over, I mean, I know that's a hard question sometimes, but let's just say you went back. Would you do anything different? I mean, I guess you would probably get into pole vaulting camp sooner, but anything you can think of that would change?
I guess not. Sometimes I thought I should have picked something that afforded me a little more compensation, camps, maybe a couple extra grand in the summer. So I felt like, the teachers around me were making 30. Well, I got 40 this year, so I'm all right. A little bit more like that. Really, I think I got pretty lucky. Yeah, I got lucky that I was only going to try teaching as a shortcut way to get to some work with kids and wait and see. And it continued feeding me enough that I stayed there. I would not have stayed there had it not continued to surprise and feed me with I really like this. This is good work.
Yeah.
It's rewarding for me. And, if I was not in the schools that were, in which the faculty were retreating together and doing a lot of social things together, and there was a lot of that extra community building stuff, I might not have been as enchanted. I might have done something else much earlier.
Right.
So I'm grateful that I was in a couple of really beautiful school environments. I still remember really fondly students and families from Eastside 40 years ago. It's been very good people to spend time with, and the people I'm coaching today, walking out of the gym, I just love to see them every day. It's like, coach, high fives and how are you? What's going on? How's your leg? How's your dad? Whatever it is, it's just I'm just so grateful that I get to continue doing that. So it surprised me and it worked well for me.
So I've seen the posts over the years. I mean, mostly young ladies. I don't know, but it's impressive. I've seen some of the videos and the articles you posted about your students or your athletes that you're coaching, what they're doing, and it's phenomenal. It kind of leads me to there's other people that pole vault, right, throughout the country, and you have a consistent group of people that are performing at a high level. So what do you think it is about Tim Reilly? What is it about you that makes you such a good coach? I mean, there's many guys and gals who could coach pole vaulting. What is it that makes you different?
So the question I've been asked on a bunch of pole vault podcasts in the last few years, and the truth is I can't say for sure because I'm just doing it, right? But a lot of reputable, ex-professional pole vaulters and NCAA pole vault coaches have become friends of mine, have been asking the question, what are you doing? How is this working so great? And they come and they spend time with me, and one could ask them. One really great long-term NCAA coach came and spent a weekend watching my camp a year ago. And so at dinner, we were talking about it. I said, so what are you seeing? What are you doing? He says, I don't know how you do it, man, but I can see why it's working here. I go, what? He said, well, of course, all good pole vault coaches kind of know what they're doing and have good drills and stuff. He just said, you just put so much energy into it. Or your demeanor, every little goofball that finally swings a straight trail leg, and even if they only go over 8 feet, you're just like, what? High fives and all that. I go, yeah. And he says, I think that would exhaust most people. I don't know what that is, but how long can you do that? I don't know. It gives me energy. And he says, well, that's the deal. He says you're in a zone that your passion for it is so crazy. He says that you just coach with more energy and demeanor. So I think no. So I really appreciated that remark, and that's he had nothing at stake to say so or whatever, but he's a great one. He said I'm not sure there's 3 people doing that I know of. So there's one answer. I have some theories about the way I teach it. I have developed a different way to introduce it, and everybody's curious about that, and I share it openly. It's more of a strategic way to introduce it. But I think perhaps the energy and passion about it is as good an answer as I can find. It's not something you can say, go do that, and it's going to work for you just like it worked for me. Nothing that can be packaged and sold like that.
I think this is exactly what this podcast is. It's zone of genius, like you don't know what it is, but you're in your zone of genius. And and you know, it's like a good relationship. Like I've been married. I have the best wife in the world, and you know, I've had friends over the years get divorces, but when it's real and it's like genuine, you know, it just kind of falls into place. And I feel like that's what's gone on with you is like, I don't know what it is. This is just who I am. And if that's the message that I hope people watching this podcast and others will walk away with is sometimes it's that easy, right? It doesn't have to be an effort. I mean, you got to work hard, put in the time, but when you are leveraging, you know, your natural skill sets and interests, success happens. And from what I see, you know, like my attachment, I've had an unhealthy attachment to money for a lot of my years. And what I've really realized is, you know, the folks that I look at that are really successful, you know, they may do well financially, but they really love what they do. And it's hard to fake it. It's hard to run that race that you don't want to win because eventually you just get tired of, and it sounds like you are running the right race. So looking back, just kind of a random question, is there a favorite student that you've had that you've taught?
There was a kid I had in my first basketball team ever. Who had the funniest jump shot. He'd leap high in the air and he would not shoot until he was on his way down again. And I worked with him, but it ultimately could not be fixed. I later saw him at the Bellevue Athletic Club one day, about 30 years later, and he was doing that same jump shot. And I said, Dirk, get a hook shot. Do something else.
I focused on
you, man. It was always so cool to have you and your colleagues. I tell you what, I've been to your 10, your 20, and your 30-year reunion, and for the last 2 or 3 of them, I was the only teacher there. But I felt like my kids, you know, here they are, you know, and of course you guys are less like kids and more like friends now. But it's been beautiful knowing you. I look forward to lots more time with you. I want to see that beautiful wife of yours soon and see your cool kids, and let's make that happen.
By the way, the jump shot, it was so easy for me. I had to find a way to make it challenging. Because that's why
you did that.
Yeah, no. You know what's funny about basketball is I quit after my sophomore year. I wanted to ski. Barlow and I would go up. You know, but after high school and college, I started really getting into hoops. I don't know if my jump shot ever got that much better, but I really loved playing, and I wish I didn't quit back in high school.
No, you know what? You did it right. Yeah. You should have skied when you needed to ski. And the reason you're so good at it now is probably because you're smarter and wiser. You can see the way things unfold better than you could when you were younger. When we're young, we're all so excited to shine our little stars, you know, and all that. And you get into the whole synergy of a well-moving team and knowing each other and who's going to go where and how to beat it. It's really a beautiful ballet that you don't understand when you're a kid. It's really cool to revisit when you're older. So you did it right. Don't regret it.
I get it. Last question. I forgot to ask you this, and we'll end on this. I've really loved the term authentic success. You know, for a long time, success wasn't really my definition. And I've really worked over the years kind of defining what genuine, authentic success is for me. My question is, what would you say, how would you define authentic success for you?
I don't know what inauthentic success would be. It was a strange concept entirely.
Let me help you real quick. Like, you know, like for me, I was chasing money. I thought I wanted to move up management. I wanted a nice house. I thought I wanted to live on the lake. I wanted to have a second home. But that really wasn't authentic for me. For me, authentic success was, you know, I wanted to be present in my kid's life. I wanted to make an impact on people. I wanted to, you know, and I did that through coaching sports. I wanted to have less stress about finances. So I didn't want to be necessarily super ultra wealthy. I just wanted to feel safe, and, you know, I didn't want to stress out about bills. And I wanted a large family. You know, we have, you know, 2 kids, so we didn't have a large family, but Those are things that I ultimately realize translated to success for me. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think it's possible that someone who had that house on the lake and all that kind of thing is also authentically successful. And I wouldn't want to judge,
Right.
they're only in it for the money. And aren't I noble? I was a teacher. If I didn't really love teaching and it didn't really reward me, I would have gotten out. I'm not doing it because I'm some Christian soldier who happily puts people ahead of income. So I don't want to put that shtick out. Whatever feeds our soul, if it's carefully discerned, it's meaningful for us, right? In my opinion, contributive. Now, an accountant on the lake could say, I'm making great contributions. I'm saving people squat tons of money because of the insights I have for them. Not cool. We need all of that. There are many gifts of the same spirit, right? We need all kinds of different gift givers to contribute to the fabric of this whole mosaic of human life that we've got. So I just think that it depends on the heart of the person. I think the fact that you realize I've been chasing money and it's not working for me, I need to focus on different things. That's a great sign that your restlessness will always be attended to, and you will be successful there. I wouldn't call what you tried first a failure.
Right.
I would just say you realized it was not enough for you and you're looking for something more.
I like it. Anything else that you feel like you want to say, or you feel pretty complete?
I'm excited for your project. I want to get on your menu and see who else you've interviewed and so on. It's a cool idea.
Thank you. No, I'm interested.
Very nice idea.
I think there's a lot of wisdom out there that people need to hear.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you. I hope to see you and your wife soon, and I appreciate you coming aboard.
Beautiful to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, brother.